Meanwhile, New York City, Chicago, Los Angeles, and San Francisco share at least one thing in common. Their populations are declining by the day, with residents fleeing to states like Florida and Texas. Now, crime in those cities has exploded, as many of you know, in the past year. New York, California, Illinois also have had high taxes, and their state governments are in deep debt. Of all 50 states, though, Illinois has the highest debt relative to its assets, and it has a worse credit rating in the country, costing it the state much more to borrow. For a closer look at that happening in Illinois, let's bring in Darren Bailey. He's a state senator there and a candidate for governor, looking to unseat Democrat Governor Jay Pritzker. Welcome to the show. Thanks so much for coming on. Before we get to the financial difficulties, let me talk to you about crime. There were as many murders in Chicago in 2020 as New York and Los Angeles combined. Something needs to happen. What can be done about that from the top, from a political leader, from a position that you're going after?
Thank you very much. Well, that's, we're going about it backwards. Illinois government and even the city of Chicago, they're taking away the powers from the police. They're removing the police. We've had some egregious law enforcement bills. And when I go and talk to the inner city of Chicago and on the south side, people want to be protected. They want to feel safe. So we've got a lot of work to do to get people re-engaged with government, because we're a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. But we've checked out. We've become complacent over the years, and it's time to get back and get this under control.
Some of that has to do with supporting the police. Do you support the police? A simple question, but that seems to be the top of mind.
Absolutely. We're all over the place. I've farmed all my life. I've just been a state representative for 2 years, and now going into this role as Senate. And yes, I have the police back. We've spoken at many Back the Blue rallies. We have got to, sheriffs are retiring early, leaving the state. Men and women who are serving and protecting are leaving because they just, it's a disaster here in Illinois, and we have got to return integrity to law enforcement.
One of the issues is financial issues. It's something we pointed out earlier in the segment, and I just wanted to get this very specific point and get your thought. One credit rating agency saying it continues to have a negative outlook for your state, Illinois, because of bad fiscal decision making. There's still state lawmakers piled on actually more debt, passing a $42 billion budget last week. Do you see that as an issue in your state?
Oh, it's a major issue. Illinois continues, they throw money at the problems instead of dealing with the problem directly. For some reason, Democratic legislators believe it's easier just to throw money at a problem, create more bureaucracy, create more business. And Illinois has not had a balanced budget in over 20 years, even though our Constitution demands such. People are leaving the state of Illinois because of the high taxes, because of the ridiculous spending, and I'm calling that out.
If residents continue to flee, and just like you talked about, and you've got high crime rates, and you've got taxes that are high, and then you have obviously more people that are not paying because they're not there anymore, what's the solution to that problem? How do you entice people to stay?
Well, you've got to so I'm a farmer. I mean, all this falls into my lot of what I've done all of my life. You can't spend more than you bring in. You have to look forward to the future. I've got to plan for the next year. We've got to create jobs here in Illinois. And unfortunately, Illinois is leading the way and pushing out to job opportunities. When you create jobs, people move back to your state. People go to work. People earn money. People support local business. People pay taxes. That's the ultimate way that we get Illinois back on track, aside from shrinking the size of government, making government transparent, making government accountable, making government work again for the people as it was originally designed to do.
We'll leave it right there. Darren Bailey, we appreciate your time. Best of luck to you. We'll check back in with you. Thanks, Darren.
Thank you.
Got it. For reaction now, bring our panelists in for the hour. We have Melanie Burkholder, California State Assembly candidate and former Secret Service agent, and Ted Harvey, GOP strategist and chairman of the Committee to Defeat the President. Good to see all of you here. Melanie, I'll start with you. I'm sure you were listening to that interview there with Darren and pointing that Illinois has the worst credit rating in the country. You know, a lot of the focus is on crime, as it should be, but also managing your state's budget. What's happening in Illinois, Melanie?
Well, it's a novel idea that you can't spend more than you bring in. And I do not, for the life of me, understand why Democrats do not get that message because eventually, Sean, you simply run out of other people's money. And so he's spot on. And God bless him for running for his seat there in Illinois because they need some common sense legislation there in that state to balance their budget or present even the inkling of trying to balance a budget. I cannot believe for 20 years they haven't even addressed that issue. Shocking to some extent. And then when you think about fiscal responsibility on the part of Democrats, not so shocking at the end of the day.
So, Ted, Melanie brings up a point. It seems as if when we iron out these points of issues with crime, issues with budgeting, being in debt, there is a common theme. There are Democrat-led mayors or governors. Is that true? Is there truth to that, Ted?
Of course there is. You can't have decades and decades of Democrat-run Chicago, which is the largest population of the state, and having all of the legacy costs that go along with a unionized workforce there and having to pay off political debts to the unions for decades and decades. You're going to bankrupt your city and you're going to bankrupt your state. And that's what's happened in Illinois. And they've got to get fiscal responsible people in office. And I think it's great that we finally have a legitimate Republican candidate that's running for governor in that state. And we might be able to show the American people what we can do when we get fiscally responsible leadership in a state like Illinois. And when we do that, you're going to see a groundswell across the country for people who want to, in Democrat states, say maybe we ought to look in a different direction. Because when just this weekend, we had 55 people shot in Chicago, 5 people killed in Chicago, and they're running rampant with crime there. We've got to bring sound leadership to the state of Illinois, and this could be a great step at this time in our nation's history to do that.
It's become such a norm to report those numbers too in Chicago. It's shocking how numb we are to hearing that of how many are shot each weekend in Chicago and specific areas around around Chicago. These are our panelists for this hour. That is Melanie Burkholder, Ted Harvey. Stick around. We've got a lot more to cover.
Coming up, we told you about the Biden administration using a Dallas convention center to house migrant children